Following on from the success of Saw, a sequel was released the year after, and I ignored it again. I should point out that visit to Blockbuster I mentioned in my first review actually came after Saw 2 was already available to rent. Can you guess what I rented next? Saw 2 back then gave me exactly what I wanted and more. Intricate story, edge-of-your-seat action, and a twist I still didn't see coming, even if my wife did on her first viewing. From this movie on, I was hooked, but after finding flaws with Saw, will Saw 2 fall apart under scrutiny? Let the games begin. Saw 2 begins with Michael, a rat in a trap who has to cut open his own eye to get a key to release the Venus flytrap on his head. He fails. We then cut to Detective Eric Matthews, who bails his son Daniel out after he's caught stealing. They argue and Daniel walks off. Eric is then called to Michael's crime scene as he is an informant for Detective Matthews. Jigsaw leaves a message for Eric on the ceiling, telling him to look closer. Kerry, Eric's former partner and friend, tries to talk him onto the case, and after figuring out Jigsaw's hideout, the SWAT team assault the building and capture him, albeit not unscathed. Jigsaw reveals that Daniel has been kidnapped and held at a house, the location of which only he knows. To get him back, all Eric has to do is to listen to what Jigsaw has to say. Daniel is held with several other people, including Amanda from the first film. Amanda realizes quickly that this is a Jigsaw game and finds the tape player, which explains that they've all inhaled a nerve gas and there are antidotes all over the house. The house unlocks in 3 hours, but they'll all die in 2. The game is on. Going back to Eric now, and Jigsaw explains that his name is John, and the jigsaw piece he cuts out of his victims symbolizes a piece that they have missing from themselves, the will to survive. He argues that people no longer have that instinct in them, and his cancer and subsequent suicide attempt gave him the idea to test human will to breaking point. Eric doesn't care though, and starts by listening, then threatening to destroy John's work, and finally going old school at the insistence of SWAT Commander Rigg. The violent beating seems to work, and John takes him to the house. Back at the house, it's revealed that everyone except Daniel has been convicted of crimes using evidence planted by Eric. When they work out that Daniel is Eric's son, the 4 remaining inmates split up. One of them, Xavier, has been violent throughout and in desperation starts killing whoever is left in order to get a number from the back of their neck to open a safe with an antidote in it. After seeing the aftermath of Xavier's rampage, Daniel and Amanda decide to work together to stay alive. In the dramatic finale, we switch between Xavier trying to hunt down and kill Daniel and Amanda, and Eric entering the house and trying to track down his son. Xavier chases Daniel and Amanda down to the basement, which just so happens to be the bathroom where the first film was set, complete with decomposing bodies of Adam, Zepp, and Lawrence's foot. Lovely. Daniel ends up killing Xavier with one of the saw blades found lying in the floor. The SWAT team, meanwhile, have been tracing the location of the CCTV feed. They get to the address but find a relay. Turns out that the live footage everyone's been watching happened a few hours ago. Back at Jigsaw's hideout, the timer goes off and Daniel is revealed to have been in the room the whole time, locked with an oxygen mask in a safe. In real time, Eric enters the now dark bathroom and is attacked by Jigsaw's assistant, Amanda. She's been planted this entire time. When Eric wakes up, he finds himself chained to the pipes just like Adam and Lawrence. Amanda stands in the doorway, says "game over" and shuts the door, leaving Eric to shout desperately for his son. Story-wise, Saw 2 is a lot simpler than the first one. It splits the film into 2 with Jigsaw and Eric in one half and the House of Traps in the other. This structure, along with the time shift, works very well in my opinion. There's a lot more depth in character too. John is now fleshed out and given a brief backstory as to his reasons for doing what he does. It's a bit of a stretch that the cancer alone, along with a failed suicide attempt, could drive a man to start testing people by placing them in death traps, but Saw is not to be taken too seriously. Eric's support, in the form of Kerry and Rigg, acts as a demon and angel conscience when trying to convince Eric of how to deal with John, which, weirdly enough, is about as deep as Eric's character goes. He seems to not change his demeanour throughout and doesn't grow as a character. I want to see a more humanised father, someone who does more than threaten and try to bully someone who says very early on that he has no fear of death. I find Eric unlikable as a result, and as much as I'd like to see Daniel survive as he's placed in unnecessary danger, something I criticised about in the first film, I'm happy with the outcome of Eric getting his just desserts in the end. Am I supposed to be rooting for the so-called villain? John's methods are wrong, but his meaning behind it are sound. To a point. Maybe his twisted logic is based on brain damage caused by his tumour. I mean, I may be playing devil's advocate and defending a bad person, but I'm given a lot more to theorise with John than Eric. The traps, on the other hand, have been ramped up quite a bit, and now there's a lot more blood. Starting the film with the traps sets the pace for a much more action-based film. Most of the traps in the first Saw were set as retrospectives when examining of crime scenes. Here though, they're in the present, adding a level of tension about whether the victim will survive or not. And let's face it, the needle pit will get to everyone. No one likes injections, so to try and find a key in amongst used syringes? No thanks. Saw 2 takes the premise of the original and does what a good sequel should, improves and adapts. The writing is better, the traps are more visual and will get to you more. The only thing missing is Danny Glover, but let's face it, since he got killed off in the first one, it's very unlikely he'd appear again. This film is better in every way, shape or form. There's no Jigsaw piece cut out of this movie, as Saw 2 has the will to survive. As cliche as that line was, Saw 2 could have ended the whole franchise here, but alas, there's still 5 more movies left. Coming up next is Saw 3, my favourite of the bunch. So, can't be that hard to review, right? Right? Thank you very much for watching.